You know, earlier today I was watching a shop upgrade type video. It's one of my favorite types of videos to watch. It gives me lots of inspiration and ideas. And this particular one, the guy was building a workbench, and it was kind of the typical ultimate workbench type video. And about halfway through the video, everything kind of shifts a little bit, and it's time to put the dog holes in the top. And he takes the entire piece for the top over to a giant CNC and has the CNC put all the dog holes in the top. And then after that, it was time for custom tool holders. And you guessed it, it was a time for a 3D printer. And so we 3D print all of the custom tool holders. And then after that, it was time for laser engraving. And yeah, it just, all of a sudden, I was a little bit annoyed. And I found myself saying, you know, I kind of think woodworking YouTube is a little bit out of touch. Now, the thing is, I'm actually not against machines and I'm not against tech. I love tech, honestly. But I do think that for me, when I come to the shop for my second shift, after my first shift at my day job, my goals are somewhat different, and the things that I want to do and accomplish are it's different. I want to put my hand to the grindstone, so to speak, and I want to create something with my hand, and I want to do something, and I want that kind of feeling of accomplishment that I've done, even as simple as it may be, even if it's just something as simple as I rearrange a cabinet, or I come out and maybe I just find a new way to hang up a few tools. Just little things like that. And that's kind of how it is for me a lot of times, is when I come out here to the shop to do some things, sometimes I don't always have the time to tackle a giant project. Sometimes I'm coming out here and I'm just working on little tiny pieces of something. And it's funny, this week I've been working in the shop, and right over there, which you can't really see it, but I've been working on a new little area that I've added kind of an extension on another top. It's going to be a spot that will probably hold a drill press if I need it. Some of that kind of stuff. And as I've been kind of working on it, it's funny because one of my boys came out yesterday and he goes, "When in the world did this get here?" Because I put it together this week. I built it, and it's nothing fancy, right? But for a kid, they come out and all of a sudden something's different, and all of a sudden there's 40 inches of countertop there that wasn't there before. And I was like, I did it this week, and I did. I just took, an hour or two here, hour or two there after work, and I just kind of piddle around. I worked with different designs and ideas, and by the time I got to the weekend, I had that little part of that project kind of behind me. That's kind of how my evenings in the shop go a lot of times. And I know that for a lot of people that you're probably the same way. That's kind of how your time in the shop is too. You don't have huge chunks of time that you're able to spend out in your shop. You've got these little windows of time, and so you want to come out and you want to feel that sense of accomplishment, and it feels good. There are little wins that you can have. Heck, sometimes I have little wins. Like last night, we burned a bunch of material, and I just started a bonfire out back, and I just told the boys, I was like, "Hey, we're going to start a bonfire. We're going to have some hot dogs," and through all of that, I was kind of ruthless about getting rid of some material. That was kind of a win for me. It felt good to kind of clean up some of that space and some stuff that honestly was kind of weighing me down, because it's kind of hangs over you and you feel like you can't get rid of it. Again, little wins, things like that. Things that I'm afraid that we can't really get when we begin to automate something so much, like with a CNC or a 3D printer or a laser. It changes things a little bit, and it loses who the average person is every day out here in the shop. Now, here's the deal. I know that we can roll the clock back 100 or 150 years ago, and we can look at how things used to be in this craft, in woodworking. When we roll the clock back, the guy that got a circular saw or a table saw, I'm sure the shift was very huge back then compared to the guy that was using a handsaw. The guy that is, that is working with that level of hand tools, that looks like magic compared to what he's doing. And maybe there was even that kind of attitude then toward that newer thing that at the time for us seems fairly common, but at the time was probably very newfangled. But I do believe that there are still some differences when we think about it, because even though we're using power tools, there's still a lot that we have to physically be doing to create this piece, whatever it is. When we take something to a CNC, it's different. I believe that we are losing some of that feel and that tactile feel of that creation, and instead we're entering in and we're automating this thing into this file. And here's the deal. I could be totally off on some of this because I'm not a CNC guy. I'm not a 3D printer guy. And so I'm sure there's somebody that's going to hop on here and say, you missed the boat on this. You don't even know how this works. And you're right. But I have an idea of kind of how it works. And I'm fairly certain that what we're doing is that when we see this stuff, it's not necessarily going to be the same thing, because we don't have, when I have to use my table saw to figure out a problem, I have to actually figure out a problem. I'm just using a table saw to figure it out. If I take something to a laser or a 3D printer or a CNC and I just have to input a file, the level of craftsmanship that I have to have there is significantly different than if I'm using a bandsaw, or if I'm using a jigsaw, or I'm using a table saw, or anything like that, a router. All of a sudden, there's a different level of detail and care that has to happen. So I do acknowledge the fact that I think that there are some things there that probably over time have shifted, and that maybe 100 or 150 years ago, somebody may have been ranting the same way that I am right now about the same type of thing, but something that I find fairly normal. And I get that, and I could be totally wrong. But my fear is that what happens with this is that we lose a lot of desire to step out into the shop, because we see these videos and we don't get inspired anymore, because I don't have 10 or 15 grand to drop on an Avid CNC. And so now I've lost my inspiration because I don't know that I can do that. I don't have a couple grand to drop on a 3D printer or a laser. And so because of that, again, all of a sudden my shop looks way less than because of that. And so what I want to do is I want to encourage you that if you're just a regular Joe with a regular low-tech shop, I think it's okay, and I think you still are winning because of that. I think you still have a place, because we are able to still create with our hands and really make something that matters. And if you're out there and you feel less than, if you're chasing that high-tech shop, my question for you is, what are you actually trying to accomplish with your time in the shop? What are you trying to create? Because you may have a different goal. But for many of us, we are out here and we are just trying to create something with our hands to get that feeling of accomplishment. That we have done something, that while the rest of the world was watching Netflix, we were out here building something, and we were gaining a skill, and we were learning something that most people will never be able to do. That's the feeling of accomplishment that I'm after, and I'm certain that many of you are after as well. Now, if you're a person that says, I'm trying to create an Etsy store so that I can start selling a lot of things that to scale that are made with a CNC, then I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's very much okay to go, I got to have a CNC, I got to have a 3D printer, whatever those kinds of things that you're trying to do. If that's your goal, it makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is this idea that maybe I have to have a CNC to build a workbench, or I have to have a CNC for just basic things that I can do in the shop. I have to have a 3D printer to make tool holders. You can make your own tool holders with the tools you have in your low-tech shop. You can make your own workbench with the tools you have in your low-tech shop. And honestly, I find myself wondering a lot of times when I watch a lot of these different YouTubers, how many of these people are actually building things with their shop and their tools, and how many of them are kind of just creating a little bit of a museum for their tools. I don't know. That's just me. My shop is not a museum. I face this direction because honestly, this is the cleanest part of the shop, and that's the reason that I shoot these videos right here, because everything else can kind of be a mess sometimes. It's not too bad right now, but I mean, I got a couple of kids' scooters over there. I got a big socket set sitting on a chair over there. I've got a couple of knickknacks over here that I need to refinish and help my wife with. It's some stuff that she's picked up at a thrift store. They're just kind of sitting over there on the floor. That's my shop. It's a normal, regular Joe, two-car garage shop. Now, when it comes to spending time in the shop, we have got to remember that we're not robots. We need that tactile thing. We need that feeling of accomplishment. We need to be able to come in here and just have a vibe. And here's the deal. We're starting this whole section, and we did this last week and we're doing it this week again, and it's called the Second Shift Soundtrack, where I just say, hey, here's what I've been listening to, here's something I discovered this week, here's something that's been on my playlist. And last week it was a little bit of kind of West Coast jazz, and guess what? This week we're going to do the same thing again, because I found another great West Coast jazz album that I want to share with you. I promise you we're going to get to some other stuff besides West Coast jazz, but I do feel like that there's something about when I'm in here in the evenings creating and I'm just kind of vibing, chilling with something like that. There's just a different vibe and feeling when I'm out here. And this week it is Gerry Mulligan's album called Nightlights. Now this is from back in the 60s, and it is very noir, I guess would be what you would say. It feels like you're driving through a city on a quiet, rainy night at 2 a.m. I mean, it's very cool vibe. Definitely give it a chance. Gerry Mulligan, like I said, back in the 60s, and the album's called Nightlights. Now, we're going over to one of my favorite times, which is, guess what? Listener questions. So, got 3 different questions here that I've picked this week. And the first question actually comes from one of my YouTube videos. I did a video talking about a leaky faucet that was on a water spigot on the outside. Water was leaking out. I'll link it up if you want to watch it. It was a short. And so the person had a question about their water spigot. And they said, first of all, thank you. And by the way, this was Rick. He said, first of all, he said, thank you for so many helpful videos. I need your advice, though. My outdoor faucet has a hole in the stem immediately behind the handle. I think it's an anti-siphon hole, and when I turn on the faucet, water comes out of this hole. Doesn't matter whether the trigger nozzle is open or off, water still comes out of this hole. The flow out of this hole is less than when the trigger is open, but water still dribbles out of it. Any advice on what's causing this and how do I fix it? Thanks again. Well, that little thing that you're talking about there, if you notice on your spigot there on the top, there's a little cap, and that little system there, it's a little, I think they call it like a breaker valve type cap, but that's replaceable. So you can pull that off and you unscrew that, and there's a whole just a little system that you can pull out and replace. It's about $10 or so. Most likely that's what it is. Those seals and stuff kind of get wore out in there. You don't have to replace the whole thing. I would almost be willing to bet that if you change that out, that's going to fix it. So again, it's called a vacuum breaker, I believe is what they call it. But you can look that up. You can find them at Lowe's. I actually had to replace one on the front water spigot a couple of years ago. Next up, we got a question here. And this question actually comes from another one of my videos as well. And it was a flooring video where we did luxury vinyl plank. And I talked about some of the mistakes that people make. And this is really not necessarily a question. It was actually more of a statement, but I did want to kind of address it. I thought it was kind of worth addressing. He says, and this was dealing with the direction of flooring, right? And so his comment back on the video was, because I said, I think it was 10 or 11 mistakes that beginners make. He said, mistake number 12 is running the wood across the hallway instead of down it. And as he saw in that video, the shot was down the hallway, and you could see that the wood is actually running counter to the hallway. It's not running with the hallway. Well, sometimes when we build and we do things, we have to kind of pick and choose. And typically the way that you want to do that is you want to run the flooring down the hallway. But the problem is that in my house, my entryway is exactly perpendicular to the hallway. And my entryway also kind of has its own hall, and then it leads into the living room. And so I had to pick and choose which one I wanted the most. And so I wanted the entryway to look like it flowed a little bit more into the living room. And when I did that, it threw my other hallway having to go crossways down the hallway. I don't love that. I actually do have a little bit of issues with the flooring tries to separate there kind of down toward the very end every once in a while, and we got to kick it back in place. So it's a little frustrating, but sometimes it's just not always cut and dried. Question number 3 comes from Terry. He says, handling large sheet goods. He said, I'm tired of wrestling 4x8 sheets of plywood onto my table saw by myself. I'm always worried about the sheet tipping, getting a jagged edge, or worse, a dangerous kickback. How do you handle big sheet goods safely when you're working alone in the shop? Well, I meant to bring this over with me and I forgot, so give me 1 second. I want to show you something. The first thing that I do when it comes to big sheet goods is I don't try to carry them by myself. I use this. This is called a gator lift. Now, Craig makes one. It's got a little more plastic on it. I like this because this is all, we've got lots of metal here that's happening. But essentially all you do is you're just going to put your plywood, it catches in there like that. And then when you do this, it clamps down on your plywood. And then you can just literally just lift your plywood and walk with it. So this right here, I would say, is the first thing that I would use in that instance. It's a lifesaver. The next thing after that is I really try to never use a table saw for a 4x8 sheet of plywood. It's very hard to handle, and especially if I'm by myself. The only times that I've ever done it is I will get my wife or one of my boys to come out and give me a hand. But if it's just me, I'm not going to attempt to do that. I just don't think that's wise. And everything that he's mentioning here actually happens. The sheet tipping, all that kind of stuff. And it's very dangerous. And most likely your cut's not going to be square anyway. And because of that, you're going to end up having to recut it. So what I do is I typically take some foam. You can buy that like those 1-inch foam. And I don't use like a huge sheet. What I do is I just bought 2x2 squares. It's a little more expensive probably to buy it in smaller pieces like that. But I just like it because I can store them easier. I've got 4 or 5 of those and I just throw them up here on the workbench. I put the piece up here and I just kind of wrestle it up here. And then once I've done that, then I can safely cut this with my crosscut saw. And I just use a typical circular saw for that. And I've got the Craig AccuCut. That's how I break down the sheet goods. Most of the time, I'm also going to oversize it by at least 1/4 of an inch, and then I will run it over to the table saw. Now it's more manageable, and I can actually trim that up exactly where I want it so that I know that it's going to be square. Now, if you got a question, I'd love to hear it. You can write me at hello@secondshiftfm.com, and I will feature it right here on the channel, and I would love to do that. I'd love to help you out. Also, remember something. Here's the deal. At the end of the day, your low-tech shop is perfectly fine. But if you're a person that says, man, my goal is I want to start that Etsy shop, guess what? That CNC or 3D printer, that's totally fine too. At the end of the day, it all comes down to what is it you're trying to do. So get off the clock, get in the shop, quit worrying about all the robots, and go out there, make something awesome. We'll catch you next time.